This is Jesus on his way to Jerusalem, going through the town of Jericho. I was just reading the other day, or hearing somewhere on the news something. Jericho is one of the oldest cities in the world. They found when Jesus was walking through Jericho, it had already been around thousands and thousands of years. So a very important town. And here's our reading about Jesus going through Jericho. Go ahead, Ellie.
The scripture reading comes from the Gospel of Mark, chapter 10, verses 46 to 52. Then they came to Jericho, and Jesus and his disciples, together with a large crowd, were leaving the city. A blind man, Bartimaeus, which means son of Timaeus, was sitting by the roadside begging. When he heard that it was Jesus of Nazareth, he began to shout, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." Many rebuked him and told him to be quiet, but he shouted all the more, "Son of David, have mercy on me." Jesus stopped and said, "Call him." So they called to the blind man, "Cheer up, on your feet, he's calling you." Throwing his cloak aside, he jumped to his feet and came to Jesus. "What do you want me to do for you?" Jesus asked him. The blind man said, "Rabbi, I want to see." "Go," said Jesus, "your faith has healed you." Immediately he received his sight and followed Jesus along the road. May God bless the reading of his word.
Amen. Thank you, Ellie. That's a great job reading that. Such a wonderful story about somebody who's very enthusiastic about Jesus. In Mark, if we've been reading through Mark, we would have seen already that Jesus had a couple of encounters where people went away sad. Like the rich young ruler, coming to Jesus saying, "What do I need to do?" Jesus says, "Just give away all your money and come and follow me." And the rich young ruler goes away sad. And so that's great to have somebody Jesus has healed that becomes actually a follower of Jesus. He's excited. It's a wonderful story. And a lot of great lessons, too. It's a great lesson, not just in and of itself, but how many stories there are in the Gospels that are like this. Encounters along the way for Jesus. Little interruptions in Jesus' life. Made me think about just recently, actually, when we were on vacation, I was flipping around in the television where we were staying, and I saw Ferris Bueller's Day Off on TV. You guys familiar with that? Who's familiar with Ferris Bueller's Day Off? Yeah, great. Okay, good. Great movie. I know because I was a teenager when it came out, and I'm so excited. My daughter is a teenager now. She loves it. It's one of her favorite movies. And the reason I'm bringing it up is the whole scene. You remember the scene in the museum? And it's a great scene. They're playing music in the background, and there is this amazing painting that one of the characters is looking at. It's called actually Le Grand Jatte, and it's by Georges Seurat, French painter. And the museum, they say the museum bought this painting about 100 years ago, and ever since then the French have been trying to get it back because it's such a beautiful, important painting. And there it is, it's featured right there in this movie. One of the characters is looking at it, and he's staring at this little girl in the painting, and the director does something really cool. The director starts panning in on the little girl, getting closer and closer to her face in the painting, and as he does that, you get to see that the artist, Georges Seurat, he didn't paint any lines. It was all dots. And so the little girl's face is about 30 different colored dots. And then her body is hundreds of dots. And then the whole picture, which is actually very large, much larger than our screen here, is hundreds of thousands of tiny little dots that have been individually dotted on that print. And it's just like our technology today, our pixels. You look at a picture and it gets down, what's a picture? What are these images we take on our phones? They're just tiny little dots. But then you move out, and you see that they make these incredibly detailed pictures simply out of dots. And Georges Seurat, the artist, said that that's the way life is. Life is just a series of little incidents. And you take them and you put hundreds of thousands of them together in our minds and our memories, and that's our life. That's our life. And I like that because it's so true about the people in our lives. Like, say the people that you know here in church. Maybe you're not, you're acquainted with them at least. You've seen them across the aisle from you. We've met them during our greeting time. And how do you get to know people like that are kind of on the edge of your life? Well, you know, one little incident at a time, one day at church at a time, one after another. And then after the course of a while, you know, some time, and many of these incidents, you begin to see a picture of who this person is. It's like that probably with your neighbor. You've got a neighbor living next door to you, and how do you know that neighbor? Well, if you're like me, it's not because you go and spend a whole lot of time with him. It's not because you've been out doing things with him or spending time at his house or him in my house. You know, it's these little meetings that we have out by the driveway, and how many countless of those meetings, a bunch, and suddenly we get a picture of who we are, each of us. That's the way, certainly it works as we start getting to know other people, and it's kind of great that it works that way for us, because one person we certainly want to get to know is Jesus, and one thing we have in the Gospels is lots of these little incidents. I mean, we can't put ourselves there. We're not actually in the story, but maybe in our minds we can put ourselves in the story a little bit. We can start getting to know Jesus better. Each story is like a little dot on the canvas until we start seeing this incredible picture of Jesus and how beautiful it can be. And I'll tell you, there is nothing better for us as Christians than to get to know Jesus, because that's who we want to be like. Gosh, we can just be like Jesus, do the kinds of things that Jesus did. Then that's when we can live full lives, creative lives, happy lives. We can start doing it. And so what does that mean? Well, let's look at some of these stories. But what Jesus would do is he encountered people along the way. And I'll tell you, it's going to be good for us to know, because one thing's for certain, in this week ahead, you are going to be encountering people along your way. Just as you did last week and the week before, this week's going to be full of a lot of little encounters, some with friends, some with coworkers, some with strangers. And the sum of those, each little dot, is going to make up your week. And so let's see if we can make a difference in each one of those little encounters by looking at the encounters that Jesus had. So what did Jesus do when he encountered people along the way? Well, one thing he certainly did, and it's something I think we need lessons on today, is that Jesus stopped. When he was going along his way and someone cried out to him, like blind Bartimaeus, "Son of David, have mercy on me." What did Jesus do? He stopped. When Jesus saw 10 lepers in the distance, he stopped. When Jesus saw a woman put a coin into the collection plate, Jesus stopped. When a woman touched the hem of his garment, he stopped. Jesus stopped along the way, and we start looking at this and realizing, as we read through the Gospels and read about Jesus' life, a lot of these stories that mean so much to us, that teach us so much about Jesus, they're not something Jesus planned. That's not where Jesus was heading to when these things happened. They were interruptions along the way. So many of the most important moments, the most meaningful, most thought-provoking moments in Jesus' life were interruptions along the way. And I'll tell you what was required. It was required that if these were going to be something worthwhile, Jesus was going to have to stop. Jesus was going to have to stop. And boy, that's a lesson for us today, because we are in a world where we have fast motors and crummy brakes. We're going, but boy, just to get us to stop, that can be hard to do. And not just for the stranger. Well, let's be frank. Most of the times when you get interrupted in your life, it's not going to be a stranger interrupting you. It's going to be your coworker. It's going to be your spouse. It's going to be your boyfriend, girlfriend, your lover, your friend, your children, your parents. These are the people that interrupt us along the way. And how are we going to deal with those interruptions? Well, we have to be willing to stop. Willing to stop. It can make all the difference in our lives. I mean, this willingness to be able to look at something and look at a situation and say, you know, this is worth me giving a little bit of my time. And I'll tell you, it goes against everything that's really being taught to us today when it comes to staying. Oh, here's something we don't hear about a lot in faith. And I'll have to think about this, because it's something I study all the time. And I don't think it has anything to do with religion. It's productivity. How can we be more productive? Most of us have jobs where we think about this, or we just have lives where we want to get things done and we want to be productive. And one thing they say in this gospel of productivity is don't let yourself be interrupted. Absolutely the worst thing you can do for your productivity. You're going along and you're doing something creative. They say that if you're interrupted, it takes you 15 or 20 minutes to get back to where you were. Even if it's just like a 5, or even if it's just like a half, 30-second interruption, it takes time to get back. So here's the gospel of Jesus saying, no, wait a second. Yeah, that may be true, but listen what you're grabbing onto when you stop. You're grabbing onto a real encounter with someone else. You're saying yes. When you decide to stop, you're saying yes. I'm going to sit down, I'm going to look at somebody in their face, and I'm going to hear them. And I'm going to recognize them. And this is going to be a meaningful moment. And that was actually another thing that Jesus did. Not only did he stop, but he really saw the people that were in front of him. And how hard that is to do. My goodness, we take people for granted so much. And yet, there's nobody we take for granted more than those who are close to us. You know, the people that we live with, that we're around every day. We take them for granted. It's so easy. But here Jesus was able to, when he was interrupted, look at someone and really see them. And sometimes he would see the need that existed, right? Because the person would be coming up saying, I'm blind, healed, I want to be healed. But sometimes, too, Jesus was being interrupted, and what he saw there wasn't a need, he saw potential. You know, he looked at Peter, so I was talking with the kids, this big fisherman, gruff and profane, and what did he see? He saw a church leader. He saw the rock on which the church would be built. Some people looked at Matthew and they saw a tax collector, and they saw a traitor to his country. And Jesus looked at him and saw a disciple and an apostle and a gospel writer. See, Jesus looked at people and he really saw them. He saw their need and he saw their potential. How easy it is to take those around us for granted. I've been thinking about this a lot with my kids, actually, being a parent. Leslie and I have been parents now for 15 and a half years. 15 and a half years we have been parents, and it's so easy right now to think that these kids are going to be there forever. Really, it does feel that way sometimes. They're going to be here forever, and that's just not so. In fact, if I start thinking about it, I'm going to realize that it's just going to be 7 years from now. 7 years, if everything goes according to plan, Leslie and I will be taking Will off to college and leaving him there. If everything goes as planned. If everything goes as planned. And they'll still be our kids, and we'll still be their parents, but it'll be so different. So different. It's like the sands of time are just running through our hands, and so often we take that for granted. And we don't realize when our kids interrupt us, or when our parents call and interrupt us, or if we're very fortunate, our grandparents call and talk to us, or a friend, or a coworker, or those friends that we love and we cherish but we never see, but we always believe they're going to be out there. And they're not. They're not always going to be out there. These situations are going to change. These people here at Kings Highway Christian Church that I'm on staff with, that I come like Ellie and Jesus and Christy and Otis and Hattie and Craig and Andy, I love working with. That's not going to be forever. Someday we're all going to go our separate ways. To be able to not take these moments for granted. Not take these people for granted. To be able to stop, yes, but then to be able to really see. And there's one other thing that Jesus did. And I think it's very important. It's something it's just a part of his nature. When Jesus stopped and when he started interacting with somebody, his actions always matched his words, which always matched who he really was. That's one thing we can say about Jesus. These things were always close together, always perfectly aligned, as a matter of fact. Who he was in his heart, this beautiful person that he was, how he acted, and what he said. And so when Jesus would say things like, he'd talk about money, and he'd say, don't store up your treasures on earth, where moth and rust consume and thieves break in and steal, but store up for yourselves treasures in heaven. For where your treasure is, that's where your heart will be also. And he would say these things. And then somebody would come up to him who was rich. A rich young man, probably naive in many ways. And here this young man was coming up, putting himself in Jesus' hands and saying, Jesus, what should I do to gain eternal life? And how easy it would have been for Jesus to solve all the disciples' financial problems at that moment by saying, oh, well, just give 1/10 of what you have to us. Or give everything to us and hand it to that disciple over there, and then I'll be your spiritual guru. And that would have taken care of all the financial problems for the rest of Jesus' ministry. But he didn't say that because that's not what he believed. He said, go and sell everything. And when you have nothing and when you are completely dependent, come back and we will take care of you. You can be my follower. You can be my disciple. See, Jesus' words and actions matched up, and they matched up with what was in his heart. And that's something for us to think about, too, as we encounter people this week along the way, as we encounter these folks, our willingness to stop, our willingness to open our eyes to them and see this person we love, this person we care about, but also the willingness to let our very best selves rise up in all our encounters along the way so that we can touch the lives of this person we're interacting with. They're going to come one after another in this week ahead, and the month, and the years, and the rest of our lives, these encounters along the way, and each of them is going to be like a brightly colored dot added to the canvas of your life. My prayer today is as we encounter these moments, these times where this richness and beauty is added to our lives, that yes, we will be willing to stop, that we will be willing to open our eyes and see that person in front of us, and that we will lift ourselves up and we will give our very best selves to that encounter, and in fact, to all our encounters along the way. Let's bow in prayer. Loving God, we do give thanks that you give us so many opportunities to touch the lives of others and to have them touch our lives as well. Lord, help us to open our eyes to these interruptions. Help us to see them for the blessings that they can be in our lives, and help us to rise up to those moments, to give our very best to them, and in that way bring glory to your name. Loving God, we prepare now to gather as one people and as one community of faith around this table. Lord, help us to feel your presence here as we break this bread and as we prepare to receive this cup. Loving God, help us to feel your Spirit with us through this action, and help us to be drawn together and to feel drawn to one another and to one community. Dear Lord, as we prepare for this time around your table, we prepare now by praying this prayer that your Son, Jesus Christ, taught us to pray, and praying it together in unison. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever.